What happens when you do something nice and get punished for it? Let me describe the situation. So I'm from Germany, and probably the most well-played RPG here is The Dark Eye. The nice thing about TDE is that it's a living world with lots of adventure modules bringing forth a tightly knit storyline. So, it was a good 15 years ago when our GM wanted to play a module called The Battle of 1,000 Ogres, in which a literal 1,000 ogres attacked the main empire of the world. We had the ability to play multiple characters, but it was a gigantic battle with a good 12 players. Kudos to the GM for managing such a big group of players. We played in a youth club that we had an agreement with, so space was not a problem. The idea was simple. There were simple battle rules for army combat, and we had a lot of different groups. Usually each player had a unit of soldiers to control, even when our character was not leading them. When things were about to get dicey, we would zoom in and play directly on the battlefield. There was a lot of role-playing beforehand, and also a lot while we were playing. And because we knew that this would be 8 hours at least, we bought stuff to cook for everyone. Each round of combat took about half an hour to an hour, depending on how well it went. I had 3 characters in this battle. One was a minor noble, leading his ragtag group of militia soldiers into battle. Another was a winter elf who had no idea about human culture, but knew a threat when he saw one. He actually went naked into battle because it was too warm. And the third character was a spear-wielding mercenary who fled his matriarchal homeland, where he was supposed to be given away to the harem of some old lady. He was a happy-go-lucky type of guy, not caring for a lot, except having a warm female to sleep next to and the next silver pieces to earn. It was about 3 or 4 hours in when people started to get hungry. So my best friend and I stood up and announced we would start preparing the food. Everybody was excited. She and I went into the kitchen and started chopping and cooking while having happy, nerdy role-playing talk. Before I knew it, an hour was over, and I was wondering why nobody called us for our characters' actions, so I decided to take a look. I was shocked to see that one of my character's units was lodged deeply into enemy's territory, which would only be possible if someone moved it without asking me in what I would call a suicide maneuver for no tactical value at all. When I asked what happened, they just stated nonchalantly that they thought it wasn't necessary to call me, so they just moved my unit. Then the zoom-in began. In TDE, ogres are probably one of the most dangerous enemies you can come across. Their attacks are effectively unblockable, and you can only dodge, which is so bad that you literally do anything else if you can. They also have a ton of HP and can, more often than not, kill you with a single strike. Retreat was impossible due to being flanked from all sides. My only chance was to constantly roll critical hits and perfect dodges, so I died in 2 rounds. At this point, I've been playing this character for a year. TDE has a system of advantages and disadvantages, and I had an advantage that is called Friend of Fairies, so I asked the DM if he could just do something with that, seeing as I have not enjoyed the merits of this advantage a single time, and it wasn't my fault I came into that situation. The GM said, "No, you are not really at a point where fairies live. You'll just have to accept that you died. But it wasn't my fault that my unit got lodged right into the lion's den. I was cooking for you, and you couldn't even call me for a 30-second decision? Yeah, well, stuff happens." So, long story short, my character died through no fault of my own, except for maybe trusting my GM. As for my other characters, my noble was pretty heroic and took over the remnants of 2 or 3 other units and assembled a small group to make a sudden flank attack. maybe because the GM felt bad, even if only a little. Though the Save the Day act was kept for his GF. At the sight of our flank getting ripped to shreds, my elf, having no emotional connection to anyone, called it a day and flopped in all his naked glory over the hills and far away. And no, I did not leave then. I was angry, and I never let the GM live it down. I constantly reminded him that he killed a character of mine with actions other people had taken, and while I always used it kind of jokingly, it kinda nagged at the back of my head forever. I eventually left the club for reasons more severe than a dead character. So yeah, this happened years ago, but I can tell that OP is definitely hurt by it. It really stinks when a year of progress can just be removed like that. Many people don't realize that when you make a character, you are typically putting a little bit of yourself into each and every one of them. So it does sting a bit when a character dies, especially when you are not the reason for their death. If I were in such a situation, I would at least think twice about returning to that table, because I would never want that to happen again. What do you all think about this situation?